All right.
All right, so I was listening to the show on the way in, and it started off by saying, I think it was Rob was saying that the Eagles are better off now than they were a year ago, and it's got me thinking. I also believe the Sixers are better off than they were a year ago. But how do you feel? Do you think the other three teams are better off now than they were a year ago?
Oh yeah, I definitely think the Eagles and the Sixers, especially the Sixers, because now you're starting to see sort of the fruits of all of this misery that we've had to undergo over the last 3 years or even more. And I mean, I was down at the game on Sunday. I bought a partial season ticket package just because you're going to finally get to see Embiid, and I was thinking Simmons was going to start the year, but even that doesn't really deflate my enthusiasm for it. I mean, I think there's just so much optimism. I can't wait until like January, February when Ben joins the fray, because I just think they have just a tremendous amount of potential and upside, and there's a palpable energy in that building. And the people even know that you're sitting there watching that game, and they have the lead in the second quarter, they'll lead in the third quarter. You knew that Cleveland was just going to be able to put their foot on the accelerator whenever they wanted to.
Yeah, right.
And it's an 82-game season. NBA teams that know they're going to the playoffs have an art of being able to conserve energy and busting it when they want to.
Yep.
And you knew it was coming. It was inevitable. But there's still an energy in there, in that building, because people realize, like, this guy stays healthy.
Yeah.
This is going to be freaking awesome over the next 5 to 8 years, whatever ends up being. So, yeah, they're definitely better off, way better off. I still don't know about Brett Brown yet, and it's kind of funny because it's sort of like the Eagles. I don't know about Doug Peterson. I had a lot of, I was very skeptical of the hire, and still am.
Yeah.
There's been more positive than bad, I'll agree, but I still don't know about him. But with Wentz, I mean, you got the key piece. You've got a franchise quarterback. I love him. I know he hasn't been as good the last couple of weeks, but I kind of knew he was going to go through some ups and downs anyway. He's going out there with you, me, us three as wide receivers.
Right.
Basically. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's being forced to deal with. So, I totally believe that both teams are so far better off. Plus, I was never a Chip Kelly fan. I am so glad he's out of here.
Yeah. 10 losses in a row.
I revel in his misery. Let's just put it that way.
Right, so you basically touched on the next question. So basically we go and say, are you afraid that the front office will so much waste Carson Wentz by not putting the pieces around him, kind of like they did with Donovan, with the exception of the TO year? Or do you think Howie's going to notice, hey, we got something special here. We need to put something around him?
Well, I think he realizes it, and I hope, I said this on Monday after the Seattle game, I hope that Sunday against Seattle served as a wake-up call the way January 18th, 2004 did for that organization, and that was the loss to the Carolina Panthers at home in the playoffs. Donovan threw for 100 yards that day. The wide receivers did nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were out-physicaled across the line of scrimmage, 1 through 11 in that game.
Yep.
And that served as their impetus to go out and find a weapon, and it ended up being T.O. They found a way to get him. And away we go. It didn't last long. It was like a comet. But I hope that that's what that game served as, because it's plainly obvious going up against a team as physical as Seattle. In their building, they play even more physical with more swagger, that we had nothing.
Right.
Okay? And the problem is, and I talked about this today, is that I don't know that Howie knows how to get it or knows how to evaluate the proper wide receiver.
Yeah.
He really hasn't done
really
it
shown
yet.
it,
I mean, in this past offseason, he's scrambling to get guys, and they were all garbage heap guys,
Bottom
and
of the
nobody's
pile.
materialized into anything. So hopefully this what's his name, Joe Douglas, the guy that they got from Chicago through the Ravens.
Yeah.
Hopefully he has a big
Big part
say
in it.
in what goes on draft day and in free agency, because I don't know that I trust Howie to be able to recognize the right guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you talked about Doug Peterson. You're not sold on Doug Peterson. Weren't a fan of the hire. So is there like two things on either side, good or bad, that you see that you gives you hope, and in Doug Peterson, and a couple of things that kind of give you pause when it comes to Doug Peterson?
Okay. The hope is that the staff that he's assembled. I like the staff. I like the defensive coordinator. I like Frank Reich as an offensive mind. DiFilippo as another guy in the quarterback room. They've really surrounded them. He's surrounded his quarterback with some good offensive minds, guys that have played the position. Some to, Reich was a pretty good player, pretty good backup. Doug not so much, but Doug has been around a lot of great minds and has played alongside some great players. I think some of that has to rub off. So that's something that gives me a lot of hope, because to me it's all about Carson Wentz. The pause is that Andy Reid 2.0 is just going to want to throw the football all the time, and and not also be able to in game change on the fly when things aren't working,
which was Andy's biggest weakness.
Exactly. He was great, for 6 days a week,
Right.
Monday through Saturday, in the game planning and getting guys ready to go.
15 plays and stuff.
Yeah, the 15 scripted plays. But then if that didn't work, or if things got crazy in the second half or the fourth quarter, and he's not getting plays in on time, and you're forcing your quarterback to call timeouts. All those things that we remember. I just hope that that's the thing that gives me pause. Is that he's inherited some of those flaws from Andy Reid.
Right. Just as a side, this actually make his question number 9, but I have this feeling, and I have a hard time doing it, but I can't separate Doug Peterson, the failed quarterback, from the coach. And when I see him on the sideline, that's what I see. I see the guy that was the placeholder for Donovan. Do you think that that's one of the reasons why people are kind of hesitant to jump on board?
I think that's maybe why a lot of fans are, but they got to remember that a lot of these great players don't make great coaches. It's usually the guys that were the understudies or the never was that become great coaches. So that doesn't bother me. It's really not that, but I think a lot of fans might look at him as a failed NFL player.
Right.
And until he proves otherwise as a coach, that's what they're going to remember.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the final Eagles questions that we have for you, and you kind of touched on it earlier with the receivers. So what's your opinion on the comments that Jordan Matthews made about this being a tough place for wide receivers to play? And considering they've been so abysmal, do they have even room to talk at this point?
It gives me a lot of concern that he just doesn't have the mental makeup to be able to survive here, New York, Boston.
And
there's multiple markets that are tough, to play in. If bottom line, if he goes and makes plays, there's nothing to worry about.
Nobody says a word.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, catch the ball.
It's not like he was set up to fail.
Right.
Where the fans weren't wanting him to succeed.
Right.
They want him to play well.
Yeah.
It's the fact that he can't help he was drafted in the first round. He was obviously overdrafted. That's not his fault.
Yeah.
But the fans the fans unfortunately are going to say, this guy's a first round pick. If he was drafted in the third or fourth round, nobody would be saying any of this stuff.
Right.
But that gives me reason to think that he may never be able to make it here, and he might have to go to a Kansas. Well, Kansas City, they're pretty crazy too. But
Like
just a place that's
exactly.
a place that
cares.
has less of the focus, where they care more about college football than they do the pro team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on to some Sixers questions now, because everybody's that's where me and him live. Like, it's the Sixers.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So, the big discussion all off season, all coming into the season, when all the bigs are healthy, what do you do? Do you look to move one of them, and if so, who, or do you just try and make them gel? Or
Yeah, I think they're obviously going to have to. I mean, obviously they don't believe that Okafor and Noel can coexist. And now you've got Embiid in there. Notice they're juggling the minutes. As soon as Embiid comes out, Okafor goes in. And I don't think Okafor's going to envision himself as a sixth or seventh man.
Right.
He's going to want to go play. He's got flaws, but he also has a tremendous offensive game, and I think there'd be some market for him.
Yep.
Noel maybe could coexist as a defensive player with one
Embiid.
of these guys, and it's going to be Embiid.
Yeah.
I mean, you're barring any type of injury, he's the guy. So I could see that possibly working. But now Noel gives the impression that he might not want to be here either.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
So to me, I'd be fine getting rid of both of them.
Yeah.
Just keep him
I mean,
like a Rashawn
honestly.
Holmes as your backup.
exactly.
Yeah.
Rashawn Holmes didn't get any minutes yesterday, which I found kind of bizarre.
Yeah, that's weird.
It was
that was
kind of weird.
strange.
I think he's okay as a reserve. I
Yeah.
think he's got a place on the
I think
team.
he gives energy to the team when he's out there.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't have all the talent in the world, but
No.
I think he definitely brings something to the team.
Yeah.
So
So going back to Embiid, what's your early impressions of him, and do you agree or disagree with the minute restriction? And if you do or don't, would you remove it or would you keep it for as long as possible? Because we're looking towards the future. I mean, what's
Yeah,
your opinion on the?
I'm
doing
okay
him?
with it. If it's a medical thing where the doctors think that it's the best course of action to gradually ramp him up, I'm all right with it. But to me, sitting him for a home game when there's no back-to-backs like they did the other night,
Just because in a national
just
televised,
because or well, that wasn't even that. That was at least a back-to-back. The second game was the game that they held him. They put him
Right.
into the game because it was on the road and it was on
Right.
national TV. The other night they withheld him at a home game
yeah,
over Thanksgiving. I think it was Friday night's game. He didn't play against
Right.
the Grizzlies, or was it not the Grizzlies?
he played against the Grizzlies.
He played against
Yeah.
the Grizzlies, but they had to take him out because he'd hit his minutes.
second overtime
in
was
the
started,
overtime.
yeah.
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 And when he kicked the
That's
chair.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Now, I would have probably kept him in the game
because they win that game
Yeah.
probably
because they
if
can
he's
win
in,
that
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
That I didn't agree with, and I didn't agree with them sitting him in a game where there was no back-to-back at home because you want to make sure he's ready for Sunday against LeBron. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't have to play all 24.
Right.
Let him go out there and play 10 minutes and
Right.
give the fans that paid their money to come see
Yeah.
him
Right,
something.
exactly.
You know, they've been through so much. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that I didn't agree with that. But as far as the overall minutes restriction, I'm fine with it. But if you're up at 24 now, and he's at
Yeah.
the limit, but you can win a game.
Yeah, you got to keep him in.
If I'm Brett Brown, I buck that and I
Oh,
try
yeah.
to win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any? Do we know? And again, this is kind of off the topic. Is there a? I know Brett Brown said he doesn't know what would happen if he kept him in the game. Has anybody heard anything about like if he plays 27 minutes, does Brett Brown get his hand slapped? Or I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, because it don't sound like he has a real say.
No, it
don't
doesn't.
think-
I mean, he's being told this is coming down from
Yeah.
on top.
Yeah.
From the guy who pays the bills and
Yeah.
wants to
You
keep
just
make
don't
sure
question
this
it.
guy's here for 10 years
Yeah.
if possible. And I get all that. But I think at some point, Brett's got to realize I got to win a game here. I can get another 2 minutes out of this guy.
Yeah.
I can win this game.
Yeah.
And I think you win the game, you take your lumps. You're
Yeah.
going to slap my hand,
Yeah,
slap my
that's
hand,
it.
but I won the game.
Yeah,
That's it,
exactly.
yeah.
That's sort of the way I look at it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the next question.
Ask for forgiveness later.
That's
Just
it.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly. Yeah.
absolutely. And our next question is about Brett Brown. Is he on the hot seat? And if he is, putting these restrictions on Embiid and not being able to win a game at the end, that's hurting him.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to be putting him on the hot seat right now. We're
Okay.
just kind of figuring
Yeah.
out, I think, whether he can coach.
Yeah.
Well, see,
I
is
mean-
his clock running now, or does it run after Ben gets here, or where do you put him as far as like? Okay, so a part of the question we had was, what kind of improvement does he need to show if the clock's not running this year? What kind of improvement does he need to show for you to bring him back next year?
I would bring him back next year, but I need to see some better out of timeout plays. In the
Yeah.
fourth quarter, getting the ball in the hands of some guys that maybe can make a play. There's very few of those guys
Yeah.
on this team.
Yeah.
I get it. I haven't been really impressed with that. And as far as his rotations, it's interesting to wonder if it's like, is that all because of these minute restrictions, or does this guy's rotations make you scratch your head? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's got to go to McConnell. I get it at some point.
Right.
McConnell doesn't deserve to be on the court
Right.
in an NBA game.
We
Yeah.
talk about
I mean,
that all the time.
The guy plays hard. He gives you effort, and I
In
appreciate
like garbage
all
time,
that.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I mean, he's forced to basically go to this guy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate. So I can't judge a
Yeah.
coach really fully on that.
So
yeah.
it's basically his rotations then are based on the lack of talent. that he
lack of
has.
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can't really run the clock on him
I'm not starting it.
until at least Ben comes back.
Give me 2 months with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
Joel Embiid can maybe play 30 minutes a game.
Right. Yeah.
You
know.
And then start the clock and then see what he's got.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, so the last question we always like to end with, because it's it's interesting to hear what each person has it for an answer. But so if you were given the chance to be the GM of any one of the 4 teams for a day, and that means you can go back and change any move in any one of the franchises, what would it be? At any point in the franchise's history.
Oh, really?
you could change
Yeah.
one move that
Oh,
would make
ever.
a huge difference.
Easy. I'm giving T.O. more money.
There you
See,
go.
there-
Absolutely, I'm giving T.O.
You got
more
to,
money.
right?
Exactly, that's the move.
Absolutely.
Now, do you give him more money and just coddle him no matter what?
I find a way to deal with him. They were not prepared
Regardless.
to deal with a personality like that. Nor was the quarterback.
No.
No.
He was
Clearly.
not prepared for
No.
that.
Ever.
And I'd find a way to deal with him better too.
Yeah.
You know, because he was kind of a baby.
Yeah.
Now, on that
really
answer,
was.
Yeah.
do you
Absolutely.
who do you blame more for that, Donovan or T.O., or both, or who do you blame for that happening the way that it did?
What the fracture
Just
in the
the- yeah,
locker
just
room
the-
and so
yeah.
forth. I blame Andy Reid and Joe Banner more than I do the players. I don't blame T.O. T.O. is what he is.
Yeah.
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 You
And
had
you
to
knew
know.
that.
You had to kind of figure that out.
You knew that
Yeah.
when you signed him.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's no changing him.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to coexist,
Right.
and you have a sit down with the quarterback and him
Right.
and work it out. But you give him more money.
Because
Right.
his talent
Absolutely.
outweighs all the problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. You got to win a title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The quarterback didn't like the fact that the people were chanting T.O.'s
Yeah.
name in the stadium.
Right.
It was
Okay, and that's
obvious.
You know,
His ego.
That's got to
Yeah.
be the biggest problem, right?
Yeah.
Because he's done, yeah.
we can win together.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
guys can work out your egos later. But we
Yeah, you
can
don't have
win,
to be
we can
friends
win
off
a
the
Super
field.
Bowl.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
I don't,
just-
I coexist with people here. I'm not necessarily best friends with
Right.
everybody that's ever
You got to
worked
do
here.
what you
but
got to do to
Yeah,
work.
you
there.
gotta
You
do
work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, that's
Awesome.
what we got.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate it.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Pleasure.